Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you a really simple way to mask out objects in After Effects, as well as how to allow some simple objects to interact with that mask. The example I'm working with is a shot from our recent sci-fi concept film, in which a spaceman throws a rock at an invisible creature. Okay, so here I am in After Effects. I've got a composition prepared. I've got our footage here, which is our main layer. It shows the rock hitting. We've just used a light stand there in place of our invisible creature. And then we have a clean plate, which is basically the entire background without the light stand in, which is what we're going to use to mask. And then I also have a little reference plate here of some handheld footage, which I'm just going to apply over the top because the rest of the film was shot handheld, at least this sequence was, just to try and make it match so there isn't a sudden static shot. So the first thing we're going to do is drag the clean plate to the top and make sure it's invisible, and then we use the pen tool to very easily make a mask around it. And then we will make sure it's visible again, and then straight away that's essentially got rid of it. There is a little bit more to it than that. So one thing we probably want to do is, because I'm sure you saw the background did shift ever so slightly over the course of filming. You can see there's some slight discoloration between the two, so it's not a perfect blend. So just to make that a little bit more seamly, we're just going to add a bit of mask feathering, and it probably doesn't need much. Maybe sort of, yeah, that's pretty much got rid of it. So play around with that and just see what kind of works for yours. It might be that your conditions were more static. Obviously we were filming outside, so the sunlight changes, clouds move, etc. So the lighting is never going to be perfectly consistent, but if you're filming inside, that might make things a bit easier for you. So we have that, but the shot involves the rock hitting the creature, and so obviously we can see the rock with the mask as it currently is. So the rock is there at the top. It's that little bit of blurry there. So that's going down there, but it's just going to disappear behind our mask, which is not what we want. We want the rock to stay visible throughout. So what we're going to do is just duplicate the layer with the rock in, and we will just make sure that the only part that's selected is the bit where the rock disappears behind our main mask. And we're just going to mask very roughly because it's motion blurred, it's not too visible. We're just going to mask around it, and then we'll just make sure that's invisible so we can see where the rock is going. And then it's just a case of tracking the mask path with the rock, and just making sure that it follows it so that it stays in the frame, it doesn't disappear. We're probably going to want to feather this mask as well because it might show some of the pole, which is obviously not really the intended effect. And then of course the shape of the mask itself might also change. You might need to do that. Obviously this is a very, very simple effect, and if you're doing anything more complicated it will probably require a more complete mask. Obviously that's quite rough. So if it's a more complicated shape, if it's more in focus, whatever it may be, you're probably going to want to make sure that the mask is a bit better than that. That's not brilliant. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to feather out that mask a bit more, which is more or less all I really did for the actual film. And you can see there it looks more or less as it did. So that should hopefully have done the trick. Obviously this shot was quite easy because our foreground element, the spaceman, doesn't cover the mask at all, but if he did, you would just do the same thing that we did with the rock, make a new mask by duplicating your original footage and then masking around the spaceman. Obviously that's if he would have crossed the light stand where we're masking out, and that will take time because you'll be rotoscoping it, making sure that the mask changes precisely with each frame, but obviously we don't have to worry about that with this shot in particular. The last thing I'm going to do, as I said at the start, is going to be applying the data from this handheld clean plate, well, not clean plate, but you know what I mean, this handheld plate, to everything else. So let's pre-compose everything we've got. Let's go to track motion, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to include rotation in my tracking. So that basically means that there's going to be 2 points to track. I'm just going to pick 2 of the feet of the light stand because they're fairly obvious, and hopefully the tracking computer will be able to follow these more or less. So let's just make sure that it's obvious what they are, and we'll just skip forward a few frames. It seems to be doing the trick. And then what we'll do is, once we've gone through all these frames, we'll just apply all this data to our pre-composition, and hopefully the handheld effect will be applied. Obviously it's never going to be 100% perfect because it's not going to copy over the parallax of the handheld movement, but it should hopefully do the trick for a shot like this, which is only a second long. So our motion target's pre-comp 1. If you have more elements in your composition, you can just edit the target. Let's click apply. Now obviously the first thing that's done has just moved our pre-composition over to where the feet of the tripod are, so we'll just change our anchor point. And we'll maybe bring the scale up a bit as well, just so it covers the frame. And hopefully, there we go. That's more or less it. I might just move our frame over just a little bit. Oh, I don't want to move the position because that is the tracking data. I'll move the anchor point. Maybe just move it over just to make sure it's framed a bit more nicely. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. As I said, it's a very simple shot. With more complicated masking, you'll need to spend a bit longer masking out more complicated objects, or if the objects are moving in the frame, you're going to need to rotoscope it, make sure that the mask moves appropriately. So yes, this was a very simple shot, a very simple effect, but hopefully the principles of it can be applied to virtually any shot you do that involves masking. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and we'll see you again soon.